My Lords, it's a great pleasure to take part in today's debate, back in its appropriate place in the main chamber, and such a wonderful debate it has been. I particularly note the contribution of the Right Reverend Prelate, the Bishop of London, in stressing the way in which women's professional contributions in care have been consistently under-recognised and undervalued because of gender. And I particularly commend the powerful speech of the Noble Lady Baroness Barker, who rightly highlighted the witch hunt, the demonisation of trans women, which has scarred our public discourse. I also associate myself with her remarks on the impact of the official development assistant cuts. It's very tempting to focus on that, talking about the damage done to education and reproductive rights, one of the worst decisions among many terrible decisions made by this government in terms of its impact on vulnerable lives. These are matters of life and death. But instead, I'm going to pick up an issue raised by the Noble Lady Baroness Scott of Bybrook in her opening remarks about women in STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Also relevant are the comments of the Noble Lady Baroness Wilcox of Newport about, if I may summarise, education for life rather than just exams and paid work, and on the need to free the social capital of women and girls that is too often constrained by patriarchal pressures. So I'm going to focus on a particular kind of science education about ecology and agriculture. Because when we're talking about STEM, we often see those reports with a woman in a shiny laboratory in a pristine white lab coat or hunched over a complicated computer graph. How often do we see women in STEM as a girl with her hands plunged into the soil, or a woman crouched in a rainforest monitoring its insect life? But this is the group of sciences that are arguably most crucial of all. The Earth system sciences, ecology and agroecology, nutrition and medical understandings of organisms as complete entities, looking at the whole person rather than just a disease. Can I ask the Noble Lady the Minister in responding to confirm that the government understands STEM to include ecology and agroecology, soil science and earth system science, and that it wants to encourage girls and women into those subjects? And it's not just a case of educating, but also learning. We need to unleash the knowledge around the world, particularly of women in Indigenous and traditional communities, so that we can all benefit from them. In the climate emergency and the nature crisis, with so many planetary boundaries exceeding, this is knowledge that's crucial to the well-being of all of us. Now, many noble lords may have received a short briefing for today's debate from CAFOD. It highlights the fact that, for example, half of Bangladesh's population rely on agriculture for their sustenance, and 65% of them are women. And it isn't just in that nation. Nearly 55% of the female labour force in Asia and the Pacific work in agriculture. Now, one of CAFOD's partners is the Bangladesh Association for Sustainable Development, which works in spreading knowledge of organic fertilisers and pesticides, the use of raised soil beds and hanging sacks for vegetables. This is the kind of innovation and science that we need so much more of. It needs to be recognised and supported, as well as the kind of social innovations like universal basic income that unleash the possibility of every human being on this planet, but particularly the girls and women, to develop to their full potential to deliver us the solutions that we need. But to focus down and think about the crucial place of girls and women in our food system. This is our broken, failed food system that, despite us being told that development efforts over recent decades have been a great success when measured by the disastrous goal of GDP, see 3 billion people around the world who still cannot afford a healthy diet. There's an article in the New York Times this morning talking about the risk of the gains in life expectancy in Africa being erased by an explosion of chronic diseases such as diabetes and hypertension, diseases closely linked to the ultra-processed Western-style diets, the expansion of multinational food companies and industrial farming systems, into societies where there's now a double burden of malnutrition, particularly among the young, not getting the nutrients they need, and obesity driven by the lack of choice of anything but calorie-rich, relatively cheap foods. Now, there's what I sometimes describe as a green curse in politics. a challenge that I would say needs to be taken up by all sides of politics in understanding the complexity and interrelated nature of the systems, biological, economic and social, on which we and this planet depends. So when we're thinking about food systems, about the health and well-being, the economic well-being of women and girls, we also need to think about the way in which the financial sector plays against that. When the financial markets, overwhelmingly, of course, male-dominated, expand under current arrangements, the rest of the world suffers. There's what's known as the curse of too much finance. It's a threat to women and girls around the planet, their chances of a healthy diet, of having a livable world. The financial sector are parasites, and we need strong medicine to stop them sucking the lifeblood out of this planet, and particularly the well-being of women and girls. The financial sector funds big agriculture, the handful of companies in seeds, in agrochemicals, in industrial giant-scale agriculture, that all too often are robbing the women and girls of this planet of their land, their fresh water supplies, their current food systems, and their chance for a sustainable, secure life.
Others